Hello and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of February 7th. I'm Terry Morrow and I'm here with Catherine Haleko.
Hello.
Usually on this podcast we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Catherine and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. This week we checked out 2 new TV series, both new to us and new-ish to everyone else too. We're not coming on things a year after they're gone. We're sort of being with it.
Yeah.
The first one we watched was, and we're going to watch these 2, and then we're going to think about whether we want to keep watching them. So the first one we watched was As We See It, which is on Amazon Prime. It's it's certainly not a comedy. It's kind of a drama comedy. It's a half-hour show from Jason Katims, who did Parenthood and Friday Night Lights and various other things that people have reacted to with great emotion. And this is about 3 young adults with autism, somewhat various points on the spectrum, living in an apartment with the help of a young woman who I guess is hopefully on her way to medical school, but not quite yet. Mm-hmm. And is played by daughter of Kevin Bacon and Kyra Sedgwick.
Ah.
So we see each of them trying to make their place in the work world or trying to find romance. And in one case, just trying to get down the street for a croissant. Mm-hmm. And we see a little bit of their families who are supporting them in this endeavor of independent-ish living.
Right.
And
because it appears like Mandy, the caregiver, mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like she lives with them.
No.
But she's there a lot, obviously.
Yeah. I was wondering when she was in an apartment with her boyfriend who was with those people.
Right.
Because, on the one hand, they're adults, and so you shouldn't have to be with them all the time. And on the other hand, I have kids. I don't know. My son is not dissimilar to a couple of the people in that, mm-hmm. Though his diagnosis is not autism, but he has a lot of overlap. And I would not necessarily want him to be unsupervised in an apartment with 2 other people like himself. So
and maybe she does live there, and she was just that was her night off or whatever.
Maybe so. It's unclear at this point.
But also, how do you find a 4-bedroom apartment in LA?
Yes, also true. But unless she takes Violet's phone home with her every night, girl's gonna be on Bumble. So,
yes.
It's one of these things. It's realistic enough that I don't want to nitpick it with those kind of questions. Mm-hmm. And the 3 actors who play the people on the spectrum are also themselves on the spectrum, though not necessarily as impaired as the characters they play, mm-hmm. have some personal lived experience of dealing with autism and the way the world deals with people who are dealing with autism. So,
right. I mean, so much of it is about that. It's about their experience, but also the way that they need to interact with the world. Yes. And the world is not always going to understand them and welcome them and be nice to them.
My favorite interaction, and I wish this sort of thing for my son all the time, is the bridge ladies who are initially taken aback by the harsh assessment of their playing, but
by Jack, who is one of the yeah. Then they ended up saying, "You should." To his dad, "You should bring him more often. Yes. He's refreshing."
Right. The actor who plays Jack, I had previously seen on Undateable. I didn't recognize him, but I looked him up as the IMDb, and it's like, that guy. I remember that guy. Mm-hmm. But he mentioned on some interviews I read that he's only been identified as being on the spectrum in the last 3 or 4 years. So he's sort of coming to it new. And the guy who plays Harrison, I guess, had done a lot on the stage, but not any film acting. So that was kind of new. And also the woman who plays Violet also has a number of credits. So good for them for having this opportunity. And I found the performances to be really good and seemed really true to, what I have seen as a neurotypical mom of non-neurotypical kids and their friends. And I could identify a lot of behaviors there that looked familiar to me. And
did that make it challenging to watch? I mean,
I thought it was gonna be, and it might be as we go ahead. I was a little trepidatious turning it on, and it might be, but this first episode was fine. And I related to the characters, and I related to their caregivers also.
Right. We see Jack's dad and Violet's brother, who is basically her guardian because their parents are both gone.
And that's always a worry you have, is something happens to me, a sibling is going to have to step into this, and it's really not fair to either one of them to give a sibling that responsibility, and also to have somebody suddenly have to look at their sibling as somebody who has power over them.
Right.
It's a really uncomfortable thing. I liked the parts of him dealing with her. I really don't care about his girlfriend. I would have rather been watching our main characters for that space of time. But I guess they're trying to give a full view of everybody involved, which is fine and understandable. But I've seen the caretaker point of view represented many times on TV. In fact, we were just talking about the most recent episode of Extra Hot Great. They were talking about an episode of Once and Again that was about Celia Ward's character having to sort of be a caretaker for her brother, and how difficult that was for her and for him as well. But I want to see stuff from their point of view. Yes. I want to see how they see it. I guess it's as everybody sees it. It doesn't specifically say who the we is in that sense. But, I think that we sort of all know how crummy that is for the brother. I'm more interested in how crummy it is for her.
Yeah.
So happy to see Joe Mantegna, though. He can pop up every now and then. But I don't really want to.
Jack's dad.
Yes. So it was very interesting setup, and something that made me very much want to see more and see how they go about this. And I have there's a website called Wrong Planet, I think. That's like a message board for people on the spectrum. And I go on there sometimes when I watch something that has a character. And see what people are saying about it. Yeah. And so far, there's not a whole huge discussion on there about it, but people seemed to be happy about it and feeling that it's well done and not offensive. So,
and doesn't the showrunner have some experience as a parent?
I believe Jason Katims has a son with autism. Right. And of course, in Parenthood, there was a character with autism, a boy played by a neurotypical young actor who did a fantastic job as far as I could tell. But still, representation is a thing that we're doing now. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, they'll presumably their life experience will inform their performance. And I think they've also had some non-neurotypical people on the writing staff and in the behind the scenes jobs too. So that's a good thing. Yeah. And, you can have all the good intentions you want if it's not an entertaining show. And I think it was, hard stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I started out being like, oh gosh, this is hard. It's hard to see, the pain. And, to see Violet go on a date and realize, that this guy is like, oh, I see now what I got into, and I'm going to the bathroom and I'm never coming back. And it's like, oh, you
could have not ordered a drink first and saddled her with the bill, though.
Yeah. And I just was like, oh, that just hurts. But so I was a little bit like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, if I'm going to want to keep watching because of that. But, they really drew you in with all these people and their personalities and their characteristics and their relationships among the three main characters and then their caregivers. So it did make me want to keep watching.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jack's character is the most like what we've seen of autistic characters, to the relatively high functioning, but just extremely blunt.
Right.
So the other characters were a little more interesting to me because I hadn't necessarily seen characters like that. And yet I've known people like that. But I also think Jack is, a perfectly fine part of the trio, as long as we're getting all different sorts of looks at things. And it did do a good job, I think, of showing how hard life is for him, even though he is, vastly more functional than the other two. He has fixations on things like Roombas and unable to, even though he knows he should not say things to people. It's like telling me not to say the sky is blue. It's true. It's true. If it's true, that's what you say. You say the thing that's true. Yeah. So I thought that the actor did a very good job with that character and the writers as well. So I'm interested to see where they go with that. And for a Roomba to be the triumphant end of an episode, it's very nicely woven through. And then surprisingly how emotionally fulfilling that was at the end for them, just to have this one moment of just watching something work perfectly. And anyway, it
is a beautiful thing, the Roomba. I do enjoy my Roomba. And you can watch it like a pet.
Yeah, you can see how it would be very engrossing. It's a marvel of technology. Did you listen to the Parks and Recreation podcast this week? Was talking about the debut of DJ Roomba. That was kind of a Roomba-y week for me. These things come up. So moving on to the second thing that we watched Abbott Elementary, which has been going on for a little while. I think as we see, it just started fairly recently, but Abbott Elementary has been going on since
maybe a month or so.
And I've been hearing very good things about it, heard it talked about on podcast. It's about a elementary school in Philadelphia that is underfunded and poorly managed by a really bad principal and staffed by people who are either super young and full of enthusiasm and belief that things can be better, and older people who have long ago figured out how to make things happen on their own without involving anybody higher up. And lots of very cute kids running around. But the actors, I thought, were all very good. And it's mostly told through the point of view of this very young, enthusiastic teacher who's sort of learning her way how to make things happen without having to depend on the airhead principal.
Right.
But all, some older actresses that I recognized. And what's the name of the kid who played the substitute coming in?
His name on the show is Gregory.
Tyler James Williams. He was in Everybody Hates Chris when he was a little kid. And he was also on Go On with Matthew Perry. It didn't go on very long, but he was very good in it. And he was on a show called Whiskey Cavalier that my husband and I watched more recently. And so I'm always like, oh, that guy. Hi, there you are. Glad to see you.
Yeah, I thought the acting was great on this show. The jaded teachers who still, were idealistic enough to stick up for the young woman and for the kids. And, they're mostly Black women. And then there's this one white guy who's also a newer teacher, and he's like trying so and they have to keep telling him like,
painful.
Stop talking about that time you went to Africa. This is not how it works. So,
well, there's also a white teacher played by the actress who played Chessie in The Parent Trap. I'm sure she's done many, many other things, but for most of us, let's be honest, she's Chessie from The Parent Trap. I have to get used to her with that accent she has on the show. It's taking a little time, but I'll get there. I like her. So I enjoyed it. It was of the fake documentary school of sitcoms that I guess was The Office and somewhat Parks and Rec, though they had less and less of it as time went on.
Right.
And I could do without that. I think it could be a perfectly fine, straightforward sitcom. You would lose the talking to the camera bits, but you could find other ways to work that in.
Yeah, I would.
It just seems like such a gimmick at this point.
It is such a gimmick. And the problem for me is that it literally gave me a migraine and I cannot watch it. So I'm very, very disappointed that I just can't. I watched, it seemed like in this one, it didn't, in the pilot that we watched, it didn't start with the shaky camera work until maybe 2/3 of the way through.
Oh, well, they ran out of money for a tripod. So
yeah,
this is an underfunded place.
Something happened, and it only takes it takes seconds of that, honestly, for me to have a terrible detrimental effect on me. And so I'm very disappointed because I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was very sweet and funny, and I cannot watch another minute of it.
Wow. And one would think it's probably not just you.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to not do that.
I wish they wouldn't.
Here's a thought. Don't do things that make people have migraines and be unable to watch your show. Because that's a thing.
I can't go to movies on the big screen anymore unless it is a period piece where they're just going to be sitting still in a drawing room. And it's usually not as bad on TV. I can usually handle it on a smaller screen, but in this case, no. So
wow. Well, that's too bad.
Unfortunate.
But I don't want you to be made sick by things we're watching.
Right.
And just another show of how tough things are for those people in Abbott Elementary.
Yes.
Just another problem. You got the toilet that squirts at you. You got the rug with pee on it. You got the walls that smell funny. And you got the handheld camera that makes people sick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's just all of a piece.
It's just not going to fly.
Yeah.
For me at this time.
Yeah. Well, I think we will continue watching episodes of As We See It, unless they develop fancy camera tricks that discomfit us.
Yes.
But we'll have to pass on Abbott Elementary. Listeners, please do continue to watch it if you liked it. But Catherine has to go lie down now and put a rag over her face.
Yes.
But speaking of, shows that are just people sitting around in drawing rooms without fancy camera work, we're going to take a look at The Gilded Age, which is on HBO Max. It seems like it might be, appropriately easy on the eyes. And you've already watched an episode of it. I shall catch up with you for next week. It's
definitely easy on the eyes in terms of the costumes and sets. It's just no expense was spared on the hats and the
they could afford a tripod, as it turns out. So it's all good. But possibly similar machinations going on amongst people who do not wish well for other people. So is it not a comedy drama? Downton Abbey?
It's Downton Abbey. I mean, there's definitely parts where you laugh because they have Christine Baranski in the, Dowager Countess role of the older lady who has no more cares left to give.
Nicely put.
Will say what she pleases.
Yes, that's always fun.
So there's definitely some little zingers from her for sure.
So next week we will watch As We See It, episode 2, season 1. There was only one season thus far, though I believe there will be more. And then we will watch the first episode of The Gilded Age. As We See It is on Amazon Prime. The Gilded Age is on HBO Max. If you have those services and are paying for them and are thinking, I don't watch these enough to be paying for them like this, here you go. Right. We're helping you use up those important, expensive subscriptions. So that will be it for our round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes. We have something new for you every weekday. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Goodbye, Catherine.
Hi, Terry.
Bye, everybody.